So if you were looking going, hey Mike, what is that hole and that hole and that hole and that hole, and why are those holes there? Well, while the vehicle was in the air when we were putting our jig together, I went ahead and made some drill holes, right, while it was in the air, so that I had a rough guide, right, because I didn't want to have any guesswork to do when it came to pulling these panels off, right? So while I had it in the air, it presented itself a great opportunity to go ahead and drill some of the basic holes, right, to follow as a guide for cutting my panels. I mean, it made sense. That way I didn't have to do a whole lot of extra measuring, right, and it could just be done. And I could avoid cutting the important things like the seat belt supports and the floorboard supports, and, you know, cutting into the cross bracing and the unibody structure and what have you. So that's why I did those there. Now I'm still gonna have to do some drawing and some basic following the lines and connecting the dots, if you will, okay? But that made it a whole lot easier for me to cut and grind. Now, it's important to understand that I am just a regular home hobbyist and mild enthusiast. With that in mind, okay, there's a lot of information that's out there that's good, and there's a lot of information out there that's not so good. So what you want to do is you want to find good, solid resources before you take a project on like this. And if you're like me, learning as you go along, okay, then you want to make sure that you're learning from the best in the business. And there's a lot of good people that are out there, okay? And I'll go ahead and leave some links in my description that'll kind of help you out as well. So make sure you catch up on those links in the description, and let's get this party started. Before we get really going here, there's a couple of measurements that I need to take to make sure that everything goes back where it's supposed to go, all right? First thing I gotta take a measurement of is this console bracket. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure the point from here all the way up to the seam here, okay? So that'll be the first thing I measure out, from here to here, right? And I'm also gonna measure out where it is in the center. That way when that console goes back, it goes straight back into the center here. All right, now I've already cut out, if you could see them back there, I've already cut out the front of that bracket, okay? And that's where the transmission shifter goes and all that kind of good stuff, right? And it is an automatic transmission vehicle, full manual valve body, that'll be put back in here, right? And so I've already made those measurements, and I'm gonna remeasure again just because the information I got last time hasn't changed, but it's been sitting on a piece of paper, and that paper has kind of deteriorated over time, right? So I'm also gonna measure over here. And so I'm gonna measure the bracket, and again, get those same measurements from the hole and from the seam itself, and from the back of those braces as well. All right, so I'm gonna measure this out based off of the holes that were there previously. Let's see, and that was right in this area here-ish. Yeah, you can see the bonding marks and such from where I did a poor job of that last time around, right? So yeah, I gotta measure that hole, and then it's gonna be important for me to note this hole as well. So in fact, when I cut this out, I might just go ahead and just take this and leave this as a whole piece in this area, and use this, a whole piece right here as in this area, and use this as my basic guide. So when I cut this out, I'm gonna be really careful on how I get this out of here, and that way I can retain that. But I'm also gonna get some measurements on that as well. And one final measurement that's gonna be really important, okay, is the distance from the ground up top to here. From the ground up top to here. And the reason being is you don't want any sagging, okay, in the floorboard. So if you're sitting like this, right, you don't want that floor pan to sag at all. So I'm gonna get a measurement from the top, or from him here, down to the bottom. And when I put it back, I'm gonna make sure it gets back in that same place, because that'll affect not only the front, but the rear floorboards, right, and such as well. So those are the things we're gonna look at. I'm gonna get the measurements, and then we'll start cutting. So for my first big cut here, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this area out here, all right? So this is, if you're looking up and zooming out, I have my GoPro here, so I'm kind of zooming out here. I'm basically gonna be cutting out this section right here, from right about where the cross member is for the torsion bars, all the way back and kind of around here, right? And the reason I'm doing that is I'll be able to get these other areas here where, say, the seat braces are, because there's little brackets here that hold underneath the floor pan, right? I'll show you those in just a few minutes. There's seat brackets under there, and I don't want to cut those. Additionally, I gotta be careful because I don't want to cut into the frame structure here. So this is a good area to start with. Now, as I said earlier, I already have some basic guideline holes that I pre-drilled out, okay? And that's really, really helpful. And I'm gonna be using various tools for this. First thing you wanna do is go ahead and make sure that where you are drilling, or where you are going to be cutting is not in an area that you're gonna cut something you don't wanna cut. Because again, if you cut something you don't wanna cut, you have to go back and repair it or replace it. And you don't wanna be in that spot. So first thing we need to do then is once we have our area determined where we're gonna cut, we're gonna look up underneath the vehicle. All right, so I'm gonna take the GoPro here and go underneath. And I'm gonna try to do this best I can here. And as you can see, it's a little gappy up there, right? Yeah, that's no good. That is from the first attempt that I made. Again, I have learned to do better since then, and that is not gonna work. So we're gonna go replace these things 100%, right? And I know that this structure here, the torsion bar structure, the cross member, is good. Of course, torsion bars go into there, and of course they go all the way to the front, etc. Okay, and there you go. And so I can see here, there's a couple of areas I want to be careful for, but I really don't have too much to worry about. So I can cut those from hole to hole to hole to ensure that I'm doing a good job there. Looking over here, I do have to be mindful of that bracket right there, that plate right there, right? Because that is going to be a plate that will maybe need to be recycled for future use. And of course, this plate over here. So I want to make sure I stay way high of that. Additionally, when I come back, all right, I don't want to cut into those seat belt bracket. I'm sorry, those chair supports, right? So those hold the chair rails in for the front seat, the seat rails. So you don't want to cut those, right? So I'm gonna be mindful of that. So I'm gonna come, when I do my cuts, come in way below that. Additionally, I don't want to go into this area here where the seam is between the seat pan and the rear seat pan and the forward seat pan. So again, looking from the front, okay, and remembering where things are at, alrighty, I'm gonna be really careful. I'm probably gonna cut right in this area here, up and around, alrighty, come to about here, come down, come to about here, kind of cut over, and then kind of cut this big square out, all right? Again, there's probably better ways to do this, and again, I recommend checking with your choice source on how to do this the right way, okay? But cutting out in pieces, I think is gonna be a whole lot easier than cutting it out in trying to do one big chunk and preserving anything. Additionally, I'm gonna be trying my new air saw here to see how that works, and of course, if this doesn't work good for me, and if I'm not happy with it, I've got a couple extra tools I have as well. And you could use anything you got. If you got a cutoff wheel that you want to use on a grinder, you could do that. If you got a cutoff tool, kind of like a die grinder, you could use that. If you got a plasma cutter, have at it. All right, I don't have the plasma cutter, so that's not going to work in this situation, but there you go. Now, as far as PPE is concerned, you want to make sure that you are having something thick on your hands, okay, because you don't want to mess these guys up. In this case, I'm going to wear a pair of welding gloves. I know welding gloves are really designed for, resisting heat, so on and so forth, but they are a thicker leather material, and because I'll be dealing with sheet metal and stuff coming off, I don't want that to get into a standard mechanics glove. Now, why aren't I wearing a standard mechanics glove for this, all right? Well, I have learned over the past that the mechanics gloves are good for certain work, okay? But I'll be grinding a lot of sheet metal, okay? And yes, this area here where the palm is, reinforced with leather. This is the Hardy ones from Harbor Freight. But if you look at the side, there's a lot of canvas over the side here, and those kind of get filings and shavings inside of them, and it's kind of irritating or what have you. So I'm going to avoid those for today while I'm doing this process. So we're going to go with these, and of course the cutters. I'm not going to need air protection for today, but if I was using a different grinder or something like that, I'd probably wear headphones as well. And as you can see here, our efforts were made with great success. No bad cuts were made. Avoided the extra brackets here for the seat rails. And of course, all this space here is absolutely open, which is really, really awesome. And then of course, here's our piece here. And underneath here, you can see there that we have the chair brackets, but there's a really, really cool thing about the AMD pieces that I'll show you here very soon, which will be really, really, really helpful. And then of course, the area that's gone now, I need to now make that same thing happen with the area up here. Again, being careful with the cross brace right here. On the E-bodies, there is a piece of the frame that goes up into this area here. And over here, there is a little brace. I'll see if I can show you from down here. Where is it at? Where is it at? Where is it at? Oh, it's actually on the other side there. I have to come around here. But there's a little bracket right, let's see here. Come on, GoPro, I know you can do it. Right over there that I'll have to be careful to avoid. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my cuts, avoiding the main frame rail as it goes up underneath there. And then of course, I'm gonna go high enough up where I can cut. Let me show you guys here live. Alrighty. Of course, here's your brakes right here. There's going to be that bracket right in this area. Okay, right in this area right here. I got that bad Bondo work that's going to go. And so, again, I'll probably be making that cut in this area and down and around and such to get rid of this center piece here and then these little pieces over here, at which point I could then go through my other pieces and take the air chisel and take the flat side of an air chisel and then kind of scoop these pieces up here, getting rid of the spot welds that were down here and of course my poor spot welding work from a few years ago over here. And after that, we're going to take care of removing this bracket and then jumping onto the other side and getting this piece all out.